Lacrosse community, my name is Ryan Berns. I'm the founder of the Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, to recognize the skills you gain from the sport, to ultimately live your best life possible. We're so fortunate today to be joined by Brian Silcott. He's been around the lacrosse world for some time, and he's at the head and pinnacle of so many different spots, from USA Lacrosse Board of Directors, PLL client, the player experience, as well as leading of director of Jamaica Lacrosse. Brian, oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking some time to be with our community. For those that aren't quite aware of your lacrosse story, can you share how you got into lacrosse in the first place?
Yeah, I think at least when I was a kid, it was a fairly common story. I was a baseball player, pretty good baseball player. I enjoyed playing Little League growing up. But then, my freshman year in high school, I was playing baseball and I saw my friends playing this other game. It just honestly looked like more fun than standing out in the outfield waiting for someone to hit me a ball. And end of my freshman year, I told the baseball coach, I think I'm done. I'm changing to lacrosse. He told me, get out of here. You're going to play baseball again next year. No good baseball players ever switched to lacrosse. And he was wrong. I was right. And I've been playing lacrosse ever since.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've got the exact same story, I think, going from baseball to lacrosse and just falling in love. Can you share a little bit more about your lacrosse journey, and if you have a pinnacle lacrosse moment or maybe a couple moments that really stick out to you?
Yeah, well, my lacrosse journey has been a wild one. Switching as a sophomore in high school, obviously I was a little bit behind in terms of stick skills. The other guys were better at catching and throwing, but I was a good athlete and was able to catch up pretty quickly and spent a lot of time working on my stick. And through high school, it really wasn't my top sport. Football and wrestling were the two sports that I truly loved, and lacrosse really was just kind of something fun to do in the spring with my buddies. But then time passed, and I fell in love with the game more and more. I tried doing all three sports in college, and eventually settled on just playing lacrosse. And really a strong decision for me. It's beyond my career being in lacrosse, tons of my friends, many of my best friends, most of my best friends have come through this game. My wife is a lacrosse player. It's been such a big part of my life that, I at this point can't imagine not having lacrosse in my life for obvious reasons. As far as a pinnacle moment, that's a tough one. I'd honestly like to think that my pinnacle moment hasn't come yet. I'd like to think it would be something like seeing Jamaica medal in a world championships, or seeing my son win a national championship in college, or something that's yet to come in my life in lacrosse. As far as my career, though, I'd have to pick out the 1992 Naz team. And while we won the national championship, the pinnacle moment was really in the semifinal when we ended Hobart's 13-year streak and beat them 13-12 in overtime to go on to then win the championship game against Roanoke a week later. But it was that semifinal game that was just something we'd spent a lot of time trying to get to. And at that point, I had lost to Hobart 3 times already. So we lost to them twice in 91, once regular season in 92, and then we finally beat them to in that semifinal in front of a huge crowd at Boswell Field. It was a pretty special moment.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's amazing to be able to come out on top and against such just a perennial powerhouse of Hobart that just kept on winning and winning and winning. And I think you mentioned just the time that it takes to ultimately be able to sacrifice your time as a college student, your time as a family man, whatever it is. You pour so much into that team. And I'm talking with a lot of the Arizona State University lacrosse players right now. They're pouring a ton into it, and then to have that rival and finally overcome, it's just exhilarating. I know you're working in lacrosse right now, but how did the sacrifice, or what are some of the skills you gained from that season in 92 when you guys were able to overcome Hobart and win the national championship? What do you claim to be your secret for success, and what of those have now come over into your life and allowed you to continue to be successful?
We loved what we were doing. It was a great group of guys. We had a tremendous amount of fun on and off the field. We worked hard. We worked really hard, but we thrived on the hard work, I would say. I would say we enjoyed the hard work. It was a thing where, it was freezing cold at the beginning of practice in the winter, and we'd practice in the snow. We practiced on the parking lot. Our coach, Scott Nelson, we ran a lot. But then when we had free time, we still would go out in the field and shoot. We'd still, it was just so much of our lives that the hard work we had to put in was quite literally fun. People always complain about, the coach makes me do this, coach makes me do that. I look back at it, and when we get together now, those are the things we talk about. We don't talk about, the game against, Alfred State when we beat them by X, Y, or Z. We talk about, you remember when Nelly made us run this and that? You remember the 3-tacker practices? We used to call them 3-tackers because there was so much stuff on the practice plan that it took 3 thumbtacks to hold it up on the dashboard. That usually meant 3 different times running throughout practice, countless stick work drills. It was called a 3-tacker because there was so much ink there. It took 3 tacks to hold it onto the whole board. But we thrived on it, and it brought us together as a team, and it still brings us together to this day, what we went through to get there.
We see coaches as linchpins of a team to bring everyone together or get them motivated in the same direction. And that's a spawn of this leadership conversation. What does leadership mean to you, Brian?
There's so many things to leadership and so many different ways to lead. In the end, to me, leadership is about getting people to move in a direction. And good leadership is not about forcing them to do it, but making them want to do it. I think you get much more out of people when they want to do it, and you're able to create an environment where the end goal is truly everyone's goal, but also the path to get there is kind of mutually agreed upon and shared and accepted by everybody. And I think those two things are very, very different, right? It's easy to say our end goal is we want to win a national championship. Well, sure. Who doesn't, right? Everyone wants to win a national championship, but you have to get everybody to buy into the process. You have to get everybody to buy into the work. You have to get to the point where you actually learn to thrive and enjoy the hard work. And, there's moments when it sucks. There's moments when you're feeling the pain. And I can remember, as an athlete being on the end line and us, cursing Nelly under our breath, like, I can't believe he's doing this to us. But we all bought in, we all understood. And the moment that pain was over, you're like, okay, great. You felt bigger, stronger, and better for it in the end. So I really do think leadership is about setting those goals and getting a group of guys that don't just say it, but truly have that as a goal, but also are willing to do the work and buy into what you are asking them to do as a group and as individuals.
I appreciate you sharing the story of being on the end line and saying, man, Coach Nelly, what are you doing to us right now?
He knew some of the things that were said about him on the end line.
Because sometimes it's a team all getting together and hating just one thing that's happening, and maybe it's the running or the sprints, but there has to be, like you said, just that environment where people trust one another. They're all on the same page. Can you think about a time, whether it's present or in the past, where you've been faced with a leadership challenge where not everyone is on the same page at the start and you had to bring them together? How do you go about doing that?
I think in almost every instance, that's the case. It's the rare time where you inherit a group of men, boys, women, children, whatever, to lead into something where everyone's on the same page. I think that I don't know if that ever happens. And I think that depending upon who the group is and where you are and what age they are and what the different people within the group are, there's different ways you go about getting them all on the same page. And one thing I always tell athletes is I don't treat everyone the same. You're not the same. So the idea that me as a leader is going to treat every single person exactly the same it's an absolute falsity. Like, it's just not true. You're going to do whatever it takes to get everyone where they need to be. And for some people, that might mean pulling them aside and explaining to them exactly why we need to do this. It might be meeting with them after practice. For other guys, it might be calling them out at practice to get them in line and to understand. So it's a process that is, I think, a group thing, but also very much an individual approach, because everyone is different. And if you just beat the group over the head, that's when you start losing guys that could otherwise be on board. And that's always the idea. The easy way to get everybody going the same way is just to eliminate the ones that aren't on board, but the ones that you eliminate might be ones that could have helped you. So the key is to find a way individually with every person to get them to buy in to be part of the team and be part of the group pushing in a singular direction.
And I think you mentioned the biggest thing for me is everyone's different. Everyone has a different story that they're bringing to the table right now. And as a leader, you have to be willing to take the time to understand that and get to know them, get to know how to unlock their potential. And it sounds like that's something that you focus on in all the different environments that you're in.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example again from my playing career. Two of our, I was one of our best midfielders. Another guy, Ronnie Davis, who was a much different player than me, who was also an All-American midfielder at NAS. And Nelly would yell at Ronnie all the time, like scream at him during the game, scream at him during practice. He didn't yell at me. But I remember one time in particular in '91, coming off the field early in the semifinal game the year before against Hobart. And he pulled me over. He said, "Brian, come here." And he got right up in my helmet and just quietly, so no one else heard it, said, "You effing suck. You are playing horribly." And he knew I was going to take that personally, but he also knew that if he yelled at me, that I would not respond well to that. Whereas with Ronnie, he would have just yelled it for everybody to hear. It would have been fine. With me, he knew that it was much better to address me man-to-man, one-on-one, and let him know what he thought of my performance to that point. And he gets the same thing. Ronnie became a great player, and I became a great player as well.
Wow, that's such an amazing example of how to treat two players that are stars of the team differently in the respect to how they take the criticism or coaching. And I think all leaders, whether it's on the lacrosse field or in the business environment, have to take that. And I think youth players and the younger players right now in high school and college, they can take these moments to understand that it doesn't matter if you have a leadership position or not. You have to get to know everyone on your team. You have to build up those relationships and know how to communicate. For me, communication is one of the biggest things that comes from lacrosse.
No doubt. And you brought up a good point there, because one of the things I emphasize now all the time is that it's not always, as the coach of a team, it's not about me leading. It's about y'all learning to lead each other as well. That's equally as important, because I'm not always there. I can't be the only voice. And them learning to, a great example I give is your buddy drops a pass. And some kids, the reaction is, "Oh man, you got to catch the ball." And no one's going to respond well to that. But if you, as the star attackman, go over to that guy and say, "Hey man, listen, I need you to catch that ball. Right? You get that ball, get it to me, and something good's going to happen. So it's next time, focus, make sure you catch that ball and do better the next time." That's something you can respond in a positive way to. And so teaching even the members of the team to be leaders with their peers is just as important as being a leader yourself.
Oh, that's huge. I was just having that conversation on Saturday with our kids. We had the palms up on the sideline going, "Oh, why'd you miss that? What's going on?" And I think
as if they weren't trying to catch it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that's not conducive for anyone's success right now. So it's a little bit of a conversation trying to coach them up and say, "Hey, we got to be encouraging." But I love your positive spin on this conversation, Brian. And I know this wasn't one of the questions we started talking about, but I'm interested just to learn a little bit more about you and your core values. Are there a couple of core values you live your life by?
Really one, try to be a good person all the time. Like it doesn't get much more complicated than that to me. I think obviously that encompasses a lot and there's a lot thrown into a single pot there. But I think that if and it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean you're not going to do stupid things. But the goal is to try all the time, try all the time to do what's right. Try all the time to be the best person you can, and recognize that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail, but that failure of yourself should allow you to also recognize that other people are going to as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person when they make a mistake or fail. We all got to get better every single time. But if we all focus on being the best person we can in every situation possible, I think we'd be in a much better place.
That speaks to your character, Brian. When you're talking about how you got involved with Jamaica Lacrosse and seeing the opportunity to be better for that organization, be better for yourself, that speaks to it right there. Can you share a little bit with our community about Jamaica Lacrosse and what you're up to in that aspect, as well as USA Lacrosse, if you want to share a little bit about that as well, please.
You hear me?
I hear you now. We may be having a little bit of technical difficulties here, Brian. Can you hear me right now?
I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, Ryan.
I hear you again. I think we're back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, I got you.
Awesome. I was hoping you could share a little bit more about Jamaica Lacrosse. Brutal. We're back and forth right now. Brian, if you can hear me right now, I'd love to hear about Jamaica Lacrosse.
Yeah, so Jamaica was a really interesting opportunity. What they're doing over there is, in Jamaica specifically, is unbelievable. Getting the game into the high schools in Kingston specifically, but ultimately with the goal of having high schools all across the country, all across the island, play the game. And so the high school lacrosse right now is focused in Kingston. We're now going to be launching a youth program so that kids play prior to high school, and an adult sixes league so that once they graduate high school, they can continue playing the game. But the ultimate goal for Jamaica Lacrosse is to have lacrosse throughout the Caribbean. They want to see it as a, where there's a Caribbean championships at the high school level and at youth levels, and that really, in their opinion, is a sport that should be a primary sport for not only Jamaica, but really all over the Caribbean region. Beyond that, we also obviously there's a lot of Jamaican Americans as well, and a little bit different than European nationalities. Most of them are first, second generation, that came over fairly recently from the island, and some really good ones playing lacrosse here. So it's also about maintaining that connection between those folks and the island as well, and building up a bond between them so the folks living in the United States don't lose touch with their Jamaican heritage, and using lacrosse as a means to keep them connected, keep them involved together. And so we do everything from camps to clinics, and my wife and I go down to Jamaica several times a year to work with the kids. We've been lucky enough to get GC Foster, which is a school that teaches PE teachers down in Jamaica. They're adding it to the curriculum. So the PE teachers graduating from there will be teaching the gym teachers to have lacrosse as part of the curriculum in high schools, not just in Jamaica, but throughout the Caribbean. We just got recognized by the Jamaican Olympic Association. We're the first country to do so, to get recognized by their Olympic Association. So, tons of good things happening there. And it's a little overwhelming, honestly, how quickly we've found success. Calvert Hutchinson, our president, is doing a great job just of kind of guiding the ship and keeping everyone focused on moving forward. And we have 3 huge events this year, with our women's team having World Championships, our men's U21 team having their World Championships in Ireland, and our men's senior team playing their qualifier down in Colombia this summer. So a lot of good things happening, but a lot of work yet to be done as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, tons of power, prayers, energies, anything we can do for you guys. It sounds so amazing what you're up to. I know we're wrapping up on time right now, Brian. Do you have any last thoughts on lacrosse or leadership that you could share with our community?
But I'll share with lacrosse. I just read something on a discussion group I'm on, actually, on Facebook, a lacrosse coaches discussion group, and it was someone asking about, what should I do? My son is in 4th grade, and he just joined a new club team, and the kids on the club team are better, so he's not getting any playing time. And I'm not sure what to do. How do we get him up to speed with the other kids? And thankfully, I think several people responded in this way. But to me, the answer to that is get him out of there. Like, if your son's in 4th grade and they're not putting him on the field, like, there's something fundamentally wrong there. The idea of this game at those young ages in particular, but really all the way up, is to have fun. Like, that's the reason we play. And the Haudenosaunee, believe, and I'm not one to argue with them, that this game is a gift from the creator, and it's meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be played with a cleared mind. It's meant to be played fairly and competitively, and most importantly, have fun doing it. And I think that sometimes we lose track of that in this big business that has become lacrosse. But in the end, what is it other than a game? And if we're not having fun, we're not playing with a clear mind and doing the best we can every time we go out, what's the point, in my opinion?
Brian, thanks for bringing this back to the roots at the end of the day, it's about having fun, and also the community. You spoke about all your teammates that you played with for 10, 20, 30 years, and the people that are still a part of your lives and all aspects. And we all get that sense of community and that sense of belonging, and something that's so fun. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today. We're so grateful for you, and we're excited to cheer you on moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Good to see you.